News Central now, where this hour begins in Nigeria's capital, Abuja, where we understand that few hours after organized labor in Nigeria suspended a two-day strike, President Bola Tinubu has directed the Minister of Finance, Wale Edun, to present the cost of implication for a new minimum wage within 2 days. President Tinubu gave the order at the meeting with the government's negotiation team led by Secretaries of the Government of the Federation, George Akome, at the Presidential Villa in Abuja, the nation's capital. The Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, disclosed these in an interview with correspondents after the closed-door meeting on Tuesday.
The President had just summoned a meeting of all those who negotiated on behalf of the federal government, led by the Secretary of the Government of the Federation. The Minister of Finance was there, the Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, myself, the Minister of Labor, the Group Managing Director of the NMPC. We're all there to look at those issues, and then the President has directed the Minister of Finance to do the numbers and get back to him between today and tomorrow, so that we can have some figures ready for negotiation with labor. Let me say that Mr. President is determined to go with what the committee has said. He is also looking at the welfare of Nigerians. Like I've said earlier, government is not against, it's not an opponent of labor discussions, it's not an opponent of wage increase. But what is there is that government is always desirous of ensuring that there is a balance between what government pronouncement is and what the realities are on ground.
Meanwhile, lawmakers in the House of Representatives elected on the platform of opposition political parties have called on the federal government to implement a new minimum wage of more than 100,000 naira to assuage organized labor. Organized labor, made up of the Nigeria Labour Congress and the Trade Union Congress, is demanding 494,000 naira minimum wage as opposed to 60,000 naira proposed by the federal government. The minority leader of the House of Representatives, Kingsley Chinda, says the condition of the average Nigerian worker, stressing that failure to pay a living wage was a constitutional breach. He adds that any wage below $200, that is 298,800 naira, is ridiculous. Following the suspension of the industrial action by organized labor, there are feelers that the group may settle for 100,000 naira minimum wage. And this comes as a tripartite committee on national minimum wage commences daily meetings for 5 days to reach a consensus. Multiple sources in the labor movement say union leaders were willing to review the demand from 494,000 naira to 100,000 naira following the criticism and controversy that drove their proposal, which was considered outrageous and unrealistic. Minister of Information, Mohammed Idris, had said the proposed minimum wage would result in an annual expenditure of 9.5 trillion naira, a burden he described as untenable for the nation's finances. In the meantime, the move by organized labor to suspend its industrial action for 1 week may not have gone down well with every member of the unions. Our correspondent Joshua Imarai tells us more.
Following a special joint session of the National Executive Council of the Trade Union Congress of Nigeria and the Nigeria Labour Congress, executives of both unions unanimously agreed to suspend the nationwide strike, paving the way for proper negotiation in the ongoing dispute with labour.
Yes, we just got the message that it has been relaxed for 5 days. It's not been called off, it has been relaxed to give room for more negotiation. I think something very fruitful will emerge. And Labour being sensitive to the plight of the country, and you can see that the economy is totally shut down. I'm sure it's based on that play that they decide to relax it for 5 days, but we're not calling off.
The organized labour's recent announcement to relax the industrial action has sparked controversies, igniting mixed reactions from various quarters. While some hailed the decision as a significant step forward, others expressed different opinions, highlighting the divergent views on the announcement.
When the president himself said that he's not only going to give Nigerians a minimum wage, he's going to give us a living wage, and he's coming to negotiate 60,000. Then I begin to look at the definition of minimum wage vis-a-vis living wage, and that you will be able to juxtapose and conclude within the conscience of your mind that the government is not serious. The government is just playing around the mind of the civil servant.
For me, I'm not happy with their decision. I no lie you. I'm not happy with their decision. This federal government don't they deceive we civil servants. Deceive us. I don't know why our leaders no one learn from this their deceitful acts when they do them. At least make they for still continue the negotiation. Why we still hold strong like this for this strike? We go hold strong for the strike until the negotiation finish. As they don't relax and now, so before you know now they go come up with another thing. Before we call go say make we regroup again, say make we embark on this kind strike when whole ground like this, so you know go there again. Then at the end of the day they'll come give us stipend. They'll tell us say make we carry and go.
As the tripartite committee embarks on a week-long negotiation, some unions express optimism and hope for a fruitful outcome. Others remain skeptical and are threatening to resume the strike if their demands are not adequately addressed. In Abuja for News Central, I am Joshua Imarayi.
Still discussing the strike, the suspension, and what happens next, we're joined live by labor lawyer expert Irioluwa Oguntuashe. Good morning, glad to have you join me.
Yes, good morning. It's a pleasure having me this morning.
All right. How do you assess President Tinubu's commitment to establishing a national minimum wage higher than 60,000 naira?
Well, I would say it's the right step in the right direction. But again, we shouldn't be too happy about that step because establishing a minimum wage about 60,000 doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to translate to a living wage or something close to a living wage. And the reason I've said this is because, you know, above 60,000 can be 61,000, can be 62,000. And that even will not have met up, you know, with a bag of rice. And that would not have been enough to cater for every other thing that the employees, you know, should have: basic necessities, basic needs. So I would say that while the president's commitment to ensure that the minimum wage is above 60,000 is commendable, but that commitment in itself, you know, is a little bit ambiguous, and people should not see it as a welcome development until a definite agreement and resolution is achieved between the Labour and the federal government, which will now be seen as satisfactory, you know, to all parties concerned.
But then looking at the economic realities of things in Nigeria, what implications could 60,000 naira or even higher have on the, you know, what impact would that make for workers in Nigeria looking at our living standards in Nigeria?
Well, if we have more than 60,000 or more, we need to consider the capacity of the citizens, the purchase capacity of the citizens. You know, of course, if, for example, I am working, I should be able to, by reason of me working, purchase some basic needs. You know, it's not the fact that if I'm working, I should still be, before the month's end, probably be borrowing. It's not that people are spending lavishly, but it's that given the high rate of inflation, the money cannot even meet up. The amount they are collecting cannot even meet up. So the reason I'm saying this, in essence, is that if we look at the problems, the challenges the citizens are facing, you know, the earning capacity compared to what they need to purchase is relatively low. You know, they are earning low and they need to purchase something that is more. So this now brings up the issue of this particular minimum wage. And I think that the government needs to do much, you know, to satisfy the yearnings of the citizens, because there has also been much distrust between the government and the citizens. Now, the citizens sees government as a group, as a small enclave of people that enjoys while the citizens are lavishing in penury. So that this is the extent to which this is the angle from which the citizens are looking at it. And I think this is the angle also from which the government should look at it, so that they can feel, you know, what they can empathize with the citizens, and they can try and do something, you know, which will, in a small measure, at least assuage that particular feeling.
Let's talk a bit about the tripartite committee. What if they fail to reach an agreeable national minimum wage within 5 days? What would happen if they fail to reach these agreeable national minimum wage within the 5-day suspension period?
Well, I believe that the response to that question is very clear. If they fail to reach, according to the agreement, the tentative agreement they have, if they fail to reach, then the expectation is that they're going to go back, to the national industrial action, which I don't pray happens anyway because of the effect, this 2 or 3 days, because of what we have witnessed within these 2 or 3 days. So for me, I wouldn't want that to happen. And I think that is a sign of good faith by the Nigerian Labour Congress to also give the federal government a chance, such that they can also weigh their options, they can go into negotiation. Because in all of this, we should understand that is a case of the grass suffering when two elephants are fighting. We cannot remove the Nigerian Labour Congress from being an elephant in this particular thorny issue. So I would say that both parties should ensure that they reach an amicable resolution before the expiration period of the 1 week, so that we will not witness what we witnessed in the past 2 days. It was a very harrowing experience for the citizens. And if we also look at the position of the health, I believe that a lot of people would have suffered. In fact, some people may have died. So these are the ways, the government and the Nigerian Labour Congress should also look at it, because it's going to have a spiral effect on the economy and all other sectors in the country.
Now, this is my next question for you. How might these impasse impact future negotiations and also likelihood of further industrial actions?
Well, I don't pray. I'm not even looking at the likelihood of further industrial action, because I believe that both parties should be able to reach an agreement. But again, I also believe that at this juncture, both parties have given themselves opportunity, for them to sit down and for them to talk. So at this juncture, I'm not looking at the possibility of them not settling it. I think labor should also come down from its ios to a very great extent. I'm looking at the possibility of both parties agreeing on 100,000 and above. If labor is going to be fair, that should be what they should be aiming at. I'm also looking at the possibility of the federal government also trying to come down to meet labor, at labor's level too, so that both parties, can have an agreement. Now, let's not forget that in situation where there is dispute between the parties, it is very necessary and compelling for both parties to shift ground, in trade dispute, so that they can reach an amicable resolution. So, with all due respect, contrary to your question, I'm not saying the negotiation extending beyond the 1 week period. Although I would also suggest that if both Labour and federal government have been able to agree on the implementation of the new minimum wage, the 5-year period that is contained in Section 3 of the Minimum Wage Act as the time, with the statutory period within which minimum wage should be reduced, should also be reduced in itself. Because within that 5 years period, a lot of things can happen. And at that period of time, it is not mandatory on the federal government to review. It is merely discretionary on all parties, the organized private sector, the federal government and the state government, to review salary. So I'm thinking that in order to meet up with the rate of inflation, the labor should also be looking at the possibility of making a proposal that the 5-year tenure should also be reduced to, let's say, probably 2 years or 2.5 years.
Now, there's something I want to talk about. I want to get your perspective on it. Now, there's been various perspectives criticizing labor that they should protest instead the factors affecting prices of goods and services, as against protesting for increase in the minimum wage. What's your thought on this?
They should protest on the increase in goods and services in lieu of protesting for minimum. Well, I think that's a very interesting conversation. Controversial as it may seem, but I think that protest should also come together. Now, as far as the minimum wage is concerned, what labor is doing is statutory. I wouldn't want people to see it as if labor is just protesting on this issue of minimum wage. It is statutory. There is a minimum wage act that regulates it. There's a minimum wage act that governs the tripartite committee. That's Section 5, 6, and 7 of the Minimum Wage Act. There's also a minimum wage act that also recommends the timeline within which the new minimum wage should be implemented. So people should not see it as if labor are just becoming overbearing. No, they are answering their statutory functions. Now, as to increase in goods and services, I support it totally. I support it totally. And I think it's just a product of the federal government not looking at the plight of the people, because it's not until labor protests, that the federal government will now see that there has been an increase in goods and services. They can see it. They stay in Nigeria. They can feel it. They know what the citizens are facing. I wouldn't want to believe that they don't know. If they don't know physically, they read it on the pages of newspaper. So I think without labor even putting it to the federal government that there has been an increase in goods and services, I think they can see it. And I think that the policies that the federal government has also churned out, from the outset of this administration, has also done a lot, to increase the prices of goods and services. So what I'm thinking is that in lieu of protesting for one or leaving the other, labor should have protested both together.
Well, while you were speaking, I know you talked about a possible agreement of about 100,000 naira agreed between labor and then the government. But then some persons say if that is done, then salaries across board should be increased, and this may lead to inflation. What's your reaction to that?
Well, as far as, okay, to even answer that question, I would ask, there is already inflation. There's already inflation without even increase in salary. In 2019, that we have the old regime of minimum wage, how much was a bag of rice? In 2019, that we had the old regime of the minimum wage, how much do you assess health? In 2019, that we had the regime of the minimum wage, how much was transportation? And let's compare it to now. The inflationary increase has been astronomical. So for me, I wouldn't want to subscribe to the fact that increase in minimum wage will lead to inflation, because there is already inflation. The inflation is palpable. Everybody can see it. And the inflation is now meeting a period in which the salaries have not even been increased. So the question is, how will the citizens cope with the inflation compared with the salaries they are earning? Now, there is a way federal government can do it. I identify the fact that that may also be something that will be looked into. But they should also understand that if the prices of goods and services is high and the earning capacity is low, the capacity to purchase is also low. It plunges the citizens down into the abyss of poverty. That is also another way they should look at it. And we are not saying that in increasing the minimum wage, they should set it at 400,000 or 500,000. In that situation, I know that the effect of that increase will be extremely seen on the economy, and it may be negative. But we are saying that let them just put it at a slight increase of 100,000, given the rate of inflation now, and given the high rates, the increase in the purchase of goods and services now. There is no way the citizens can cope. And the federal government should also be careful to an extent that the citizens should not take up the gauntlet and come out by themselves and start protesting. So that's why all these things need to be put in place. But for me, I don't think that increasing it in the range of 100,000 and a little bit above will lead to the expected rate of inflation that some people are anticipating.
Thank you so much for your insight on the news. Ireoluwa Oguntoashe, labor law expert. Thank you once again.
Yeah, you're welcome, and have a productive day.
The Nigeria Customs Service, Western Marine Command, on Tuesday handed over 17 sacks of cannabis sativa containing 1,257 parcels worth 96 million naira, intercepted along Bar Beach in Lagos State to the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency. The Customs Area Controller of the Command, Paul Bamisai, said that the officers of the command, in the bid to purge the western waterways of smuggling activities, intercepted the hard drugs weighing 609 kilograms. He stated that a patrol team at the Bar Beach station received credible intelligence on the movement of a boat on the high sea carrying suspected contraband items. Bamisai adds that upon receiving the information, the team moved towards the described location and intercepted a fiber boat fitted with 200 horsepower Yamaha engine carrying the suspected items. Thank you for staying tuned. President Bola Tinubu has commissioned the arterial road N20 in the nation's capital, Abuja, and approved its naming after Nigeria's Nobel laureate Wole Soyinka. The road, among others, is the fifth infrastructural project commissioned in the last 1 week as part of the first year anniversary of the current administration. Our correspondent Idong Joseph tells us more.
The arterial road N20 stretches from the Shehu Musa Yar'Adua Expressway to the Outer Northern Expressway of the Murtala Mohammed Expressway. As the project was being commissioned by President Bola Tinubu following its completion, the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory appealed to the President to consider renaming it after Nigeria's Nobel laureate, Wole Soyinka.
A dead man does not know what happens. So I will appeal with you that let us recognize one of our own to name this road after him, who has done well, the only Nobel laureate we have that has made Nigeria proud in the world. I recommend that this road should be named Wole Soyinka Way.
The recommendation was approved.
Your momentous and recommendation to name this road as Wole Soyinka Way is well received.
The President described the project as part of government's efforts to invest in critical infrastructure of the Federal Capital Territory, considering its increasing population.
The population of Nigeria is growing. The population of Abuja Capital Territory is growing. It is necessary to invest in infrastructure to sustain the growth.
The decision to accept the recommendation, according to the President, is due to the contributions of Soyinka to Nigerian and African literature in general. In Abuja for News Central, I am Idong Joseph.
Let's head back to the Senate, where the senator representing Bauchi North Senatorial District, Senator Abdul Ningi, on Tuesday returned to plenary sessions following a 3-month suspension. The Senate had pardoned and recalled him, ending his suspension that began on March 12, 2024. Last week, Deputy Minority Leader Senator Abba Moro moved the motion for Ningi's recall, expressing regrets on his behalf and taking responsibility for his actions. The Senate President, Godswill Akpabio, subsequently announced Ningi's unconditional recall after pleas from some lawmakers. Ningi's suspension stemmed from a controversial interview where he alleged discrepancies in the 2024 budget, claiming the National Assembly approved 25 trillion naira, while the presidency implemented 28.7 trillion naira.
Therefore, my resolve to, with a profound humility, to Allah, the sustainer and the cherisher, thanking him for giving us this day and for finding it fit enough, for finding time to be with you once again. And I would like to commend the Senate for this gesture. And I would like especially to commend the Senate President for the kind words you have expressed that day about me. Commend the leadership of the minority. Also commend the ad-hoc committee of the Senate.
So let me thank distinguished Senator Ningi for his kind words to the Senate, the leadership and members, and also thank the senators for welcoming you back and taking a unanimous decision to call you back from Turkey. I believe that you have a lot to contribute to the 10th Senate. I believe you're a very resourceful senator. And like you said, let bygone be bygone. So you are welcome. We welcome you back with gratitude.
Airstrikes by the Nigerian Air Force have destroyed terrorist enclave in Giwa local government area of Kaduna State. A statement on Tuesday by the Nigerian Air Force Director of Public Relations and Information, Edward Gaboit, said the strikes were carried out between 30th and 31st May 2024 by its air component of Operation Whirl. The surveillance also confirmed the substantial presence of armed terrorists lodging around the huts, and over 13 motorcycles were seen tucked under a large umbrella tree. The statement also said targeted exploitation of multiple sources revealed that the terrorists at the location were responsible for the most attacks and kidnappings in several communities within Benin, Gwabi, Igabi, and Giwa local government areas. Staying with security, over 140 terrorists have been neutralized, with 176 surrendering as part of the unfolding successes of Operation Lake Sanity 2 operation in the Lake Chad region. The Force Commander, Multinational Joint Task Force Major General Ibrahim Ali, announced this strides during an international press conference held at the Maimalari military cantonment in Nigeria's Borno State. Our correspondent Umaru Kirawa attended the press conference and files in this report.
Strongholds of terrorists, including Doron Naira, Sannari, Bagadaza, among others, been cleared. Troops from Nigeria, Chad and Cameroon, under the auspices of the Multinational Joint Task Force, moves with the clearance operations. The force commander led other military officers to Nigeria's Maimalari cantonment, Maiduguri, to give update on the operation in the Lake Chad.
We have recorded the surrender of 176 terrorists and the arrest of 57 individuals involved in terrorist activities. Over 140 terrorists were neutralized during these airstrikes, and a significant amount of terrorist platforms and material were destroyed, severely crippling their operational capabilities.
Terrorist logistic bases and staging areas, particularly around Tumbumfulani and other key locations, were said to be destroyed by the armed forces.
Quite a number of them have surrendered. Definitely, you know, some of them will not want to surrender. So, Operation Lake Sanity 2 is for those that have refused to heed to the call. That's where we are using the kinetic means. So we are using other strategies apart from the kinetic. We have also constructed over 95 community projects, quick impact projects in the 4 countries.
The commander emphasized the Multinational Joint Task Force's commitment to utilizing more persuasive means to encourage the surrender of terrorists in an effort to end the insurgency and promote peace building in the area.
The Niger forces are with us. We are together. Officially, they are not part of this operation, but I can tell you they have contributed tremendously so far in the conduct of Operation Lake Sanity 2.
The Multinational Joint Task Force pledged to continue its relentless efforts to restore stability and secure the lives of citizens in the affected areas.
The fear of losing depositors' money in failed banks should not be entertained anymore. Recently, the Central Bank of Nigeria announced the revocation of a personal license of Heritage Bank over non-compliance to a section of the Banks and Other Financial Acts of 2020. Our correspondent Chiwo Ogele reports that many Nigerians have reacted to these announcements.
Most Nigerians were shocked about the revocation announcement of the Heritage Bank by the nation's regulator, the Central Bank of Nigeria. Some fear the possibility of depositors losing their savings with the bank following its license withdrawal. However, experts and some citizens say there is no cause for alarm given the reality that the Nigeria's Deposit Insurance Corporation, as the liquidator, is available to protect depositors' money.
So their deposits are insured, and every bank has to do the insurance. They will insure them.
No bank in Nigeria can cause anybody high BP. Yes, after that particular policy during Soludo, I don't think we can experience such loss if any bank had to experience license withdrawal.
Although many are of the view that the Central Bank of Nigeria should have ensured that no bank in the nation fails in this day and age, experts says it is purely the fault of the bank.
If they had bought enough treasury bills, if they have a problem, they can recourse on this thing and discount the treasury bills and make a lot of money, and then bring back whatever infraction that had been caused. They remedy it.
Recently, the Central Bank of Nigeria directed banks to shore up their finances to guarantee the financial stability of the banks, which obviously forms the basis for this revocation.
So in cases of this kind of incident, this revocation of their license, I don't have any doubt that all customers will get their money. So I think with the money deposited with Central Bank, I think it will be enough to spread, and even the assets and all that, gather it to pay off all customers.
The depositors they will be protected. They will make sure that even if the available money to be returned to them is not there, when the assets of the bank is sold, they still have recourse to the depositors to pay them their estate. So no customer will be shortchanged in any way.
Depositors at the bank are not willing to speak on camera, but are hopeful that they can access their savings in full. In Omaha for News Central, Chinwe Ugele.
Thank you for staying with us. Moscow's top diplomat, Sergei Lavrov, says French military instructors training soldiers in Ukraine would be a legitimate target for Russian strikes. Lavrov was speaking on Tuesday during a meeting with his Congolese counterpart, Jean-Claude Gassoko. He stressed that regardless that they are considered to be servicemen from the French armed forces or simply mercenaries, they represent a legitimate target for the Russian armed forces. Earlier, reports citing diplomatic sources said France may send military instructors to Ukraine as early as this week, despite the risk of a direct clash with Russia.
На сей счет касается вопрос о французских инструкторах. У меня есть основания полагать, на сей счет немало конкретных фактов, что они на Украине уже работают. Кем бы они ни значились, военнослужащими вооруженных сил Франции или являлись бы просто наемниками, они представляют собой абсолютно законную цель для наших вооруженных сил.
We head to the east of the continent, where roads are being rebuilt. Hotel constructions on buildings is back on track, and shops and cafes are once again bustling in Tigray's capital, Mekelle, after a peace deal finally ended one of the deadliest conflicts in recent years. Although Ethiopia's northernmost region of Tigray is still gripped by humanitarian crisis, the capital, Mekelle, is slowly crawling back to normalcy 19 months after a peace deal ended one of the world's deadliest recent conflicts. The two-year war between Ethiopian federal forces and Tigrayan rebel authorities killed as many as 600,000 people by some estimates, forced several millions from their homes, and unleashed widespread hunger.
ብዙ ችግርና ብዙ መንከራ ያሳለፈውን አሁን ትንሽ ፍታ ያገኘው ይመስላል። ለወደፊቱ ያው እንደዚህ ብሎ ሰላሙ ከተገኘ እንደዚህ ሰው እየተንቀሳቀሰ ራሱን ችሎ መኖር አንድ ትልቅ ነገር ነው።
አስተዳደሩ ማዘጋጃ ቤቱ የተከተለው አፕሮች ከታች ወደ ላይ የሚለው ምክንያቱም ያለን ሪሶርስ በጣም ውስን ነው፣ ውድመቱ ከፍተኛ ነው። ከተማችንን መልሰን የመገንባት አትሊስት ለስራ ምቹ የሆነ ነገር ኢንቫይሮንመንት ለመፍጠር ህዝባችንን ምንድነው የሚፈልገው የሚለው ነው ቅድሚያ የተሰጠው። በዚህ መሀል ከተማ ብንወስድ ወደ 12 መንገዶች ነው የምንሰራው። አሁን 3 እየጨረስን ነው። ይቀጥላል። ከዚህ ከሁለት ሆስፒታሎች ስራዎች አሉ።
Residents of Othongathi A town in eastern South Africa have assessed the damage to the homes and community after a storm ripped through the area. Local authorities on Tuesday said flooding caused by torrential rain and fierce winds in South Africa's eastern coast killed at least 22 people. A spokesperson from Nelson Mandela Bay municipality at the heart of the flood said that at least 11 people died in the Eastern Cape. The provincial government in the neighboring KwaZulu-Natal also said at least 11 people had died in and around the port of Durban.
Sinakudla ukudla kumatile izinto zethu zonke imatile ama-ideas asagqibekile sisafuna asinalutho nje kahle asinalutho njengamanje asinalutho but onosizo bengavela bakithi besincede ngayo yonke indlela abangasiza ngayo ngoba kumanzi ngisho ingubo zokulala njengoba sibona sakho ulayini imbhedi imanzi yonke into imanzi sizama khona ukuthi zama ukuthi silale khona emgwaqeni kodwa sibe simbathile
njengoba nibona lamaplangwe bengihlalisa abantu abaqashile la so manje njengoba kuwela amaplangwe kusho ukuthi abasenayo indawo yokuhlala kusho ukuthi mina fanele ngizame indawo yokuhlala ngizamele nabo nale ndlu fanele ngiyilungisa of which ke anginayo ke nalo mali lokwenza lezo zinto lezo bengiphila ngabo labantu abaqashile bawuthuka kuphela
angisasebenzi ngisebenza wona lo msebenzi wokukhanda imoto lokhu ngaphuma emsebenzini ngo96 ngikhanda lezi imoto manje angazi njengoba idemeshe ingaka ukuthi ngizokwenza kanjani ngoba abanye abanikazi bazo bayamukela abanye abafuna ukumukela kuba sengathi mina engenzele lento ngathi into kaNkulunkulu.
The United States will temporarily close its Mexico border to asylum seekers from Wednesday as President Joe Biden tries to neutralize his political weakness on migration ahead of November's election battle with Donald Trump. Biden signed a long-awaited executive order taking effect at midnight to gain control of the southern frontier with Mexico after a record number of illegal border crossings sparked concerns among voters. The 81-year-old Democrat's executive order bars migrants who enter the U.S. illegally from claiming asylum when numbers surge past 2,500 in a day, a threshold that has already been passed. It also makes it easier to deport people back to Mexico.
This action will help us gain control of our border, restore order into the process. This ban will remain in place until the number of people trying to enter illegally is reduced to a level that our system can effectively manage. We'll carry out this order consistent with all our responsibilities under international law, every one of them. In addition, but then Republicans in Congress, not all, but walked away from it. Why? Because Donald Trump told them to. He told the Republicans, it has been published widely by many of you, that he didn't want to fix the issue, he wanted to use it to attack me. That's what he wanted to do. It was a cynical and an extremely cynical political move. And a complete disservice to the American people who are looking for us to, not to weaponize the border, but to fix it. We need to get that done. But we must face the simple truth. To protect America as a land that welcomes immigrants, we must first secure the border and secure it now. The simple truth is, there is a worldwide migrant crisis. And if the United States doesn't secure our border, there's no limit to the number of people who may try to come here, because there's no better place on the planet.
Israel's military says it has established the deaths of 4 more persons abducted by Hamas on October the 7th. According to the report, the 4 were slain simultaneously during an Israeli raid in the southern Gazan town of Han Yunis. It adds that the militants were still holding their bodies. The men were named as British-Israeli 51-year-old Nadav Popwell, 79-year-old Cham Perry, 80-year-old Yoram Metzer, and 85-year-old Amiram Cooper. Israel Defense Forces spokesman Daniel Hagari said intelligence gathered in recent weeks had led to the assessment. And now to sports stories. Lilian Ude produced the 3rd all-time best bowling figures for an inning, bowling 6 wickets for 7 runs in 4 overs as the ongoing 2024 Kwibuka Women's T20I tournament in Rwanda, which ended Nigeria a 32-run win over hosts and arch-rivals Rwanda. Salome Sunday also smashed 29 runs off just 12 balls right from the moment she stepped into the crease. The female Yellow Greens have now taken 12 wins in 24 meetings with Rwanda, who have 11 wins while 1 game ended in a draw. 2019 Abu Dhabi Marathon champion Ruben Kipyego has been provisionally suspended by the Athletics Integrity Unit for whereabouts failures. The AIU, in an announcement on Tuesday, noted that Kipyego has been suspended temporarily from participating in any competition or activity in athletics prior to a final decision at a hearing conducted under the World Athletics Anti-Doping Rules or Integrity Code of Conduct. Kipyego's final race was the Rotterdam Marathon in 2022, where he finished an impressive third. He has also competed in 3 races in 2021, where he struck with a win at the Milano Marathon and later finished 8th at the Chicago Marathon before finishing 2nd at the Abu Dhabi Marathon. Carlos Alcaraz made light work of Stefanos Tsitsipas to set up a French Open semi-final against incoming world #1 Jannik Sinner. Alcaraz, who is 21, won 6-3, 7-6, 7-3, 6-4 against the Greek 9th seed Tsitsipas on the Roland Garros clay. It was the 2nd year running that Alcaraz had won against 2021 runner-up Tsitsipas in the quarterfinals at the Paris Major. The reigning Wimbledon champion has now won all 6 of his career meetings against Tsitsipas. Alcaraz is bidding to become the youngest man in history to win Grand Slam tournament on hard grass and clay court after his Wimbledon triumph in 2022 U.S. Open title. He will face Sinner on Friday for the 9th time with a pair head-to-head record level at 4-4. Sergio Perez has signed a new 2-year contract to stay at Red Bull in Formula 1 until the end of 2026. The world champions decided to stick with the Mexican who joined the team in 2021 rather than switch him for Carlos Sainz, who is available following Lewis Hamilton's decision to move to Ferrari in 2025. The Dutchman, who produced the most dominant season in F1 history in 2023, has won only once in the past 3 races as Red Bull have faced a renewed challenge from McLaren and Ferrari. And that's all on the news. But before we go, let's take a look again at some of the major stories. President Bola Tinubu orders Finance Minister to present model for new minimum wage in 2 days. Nigeria Customs Service intercepts 96 million naira worth of marijuana along Lagos Bar Beach. Othongathi residents assess damage after storm kills 22 in South Africa. Send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen and follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch us live on DSTV, channel 422, Star Times, channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Adebola Adeduba.